Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Rocket Chiro Podcast, the business and marketing podcast for chiropractors. We're going to talk about money today, and we're going to talk about how much money do chiropractors make. Now, this is just going to be based on some averages, based on some Google searches, based on what little bit I could find. I did a video about this probably a couple of years ago now, and there was a Forbes article, and it was in 2019, and it was basically, let me see what the name of this is. It says, here's how much chiropractors earn in every state. And so I did a video just kind of giving you some short thoughts about it and overviews. And I thought I would do a little bit more of a deep dive on the podcast, and we would just talk about what the averages are, what the average is overall, and just how chiropractors make their money. And my intention is this, is that we're going to do a little bit of a comparison to some other professions, dentists, physical therapists, and nurse practitioners, just to kind of see how much of the schooling kind of eats up the income costs, like what percentage of the schooling makes up, is kind of eating into the average salary, those sort of things. We're just kind of look at some numbers. This is kind of nerdy a little bit, but I think it's interesting just to look at, because I've always kind of made the assumption that chiropractic college is a ripoff. And because I just think that it costs a lot of money for how much a chiropractor actually makes. And man, I got crap in my eyes. What in the world? I think I got an eye booger. Anyway, how's that for quality podcasting? So I kind of just thought, like, man, chiropractic college is such a scam. Like, you spend so much money, and chiropractors as a whole don't make nearly as much as what I think they should. And I think you probably would agree with me if you're listening to this. So I thought, well, let's kind of look and see how it compares. I was a little bit surprised at some of the stuff that I saw. And I think I have a dual purpose for this podcast. One is that if you happen to be if you find this and you're thinking about becoming a chiropractor, I think that you're going to get some real actual information that's going to help you make a decision. Stuff that I never knew and stuff that I never even knew to look for. And obviously Google wasn't even around when I was looking to become a chiropractor. So that wasn't part of my thought process. But if you're Googling how much money chiropractors make, you're probably thinking about becoming a chiropractor. And if you've stumbled upon this podcast, then I hope I can give you some really good information and you can make a informed decision. If you're already a chiropractor, sorry, you've kind of spent your money, you've made your bed, now you have to sleep with it. And I sleep in it, not with it. I guess you sleep with your bed. My thought process is to do the same thing that I try to do with a lot of my podcasts and videos. And that is, I want you to really take seriously the business ownership side of what you're doing as a chiropractor. Because I really do believe that the difference between barely getting by and actually making the kind of income that you should make as a chiropractor, considering the amount of time and energy and money you've spent to get to where you are, I do think that it hinges on you becoming a leader and a business owner, and it has less to do with your skill as a chiropractor. Now, I do not advocate sloppy chiropractors, and you'll hear me say that anytime I talk about the importance of business and marketing, and I think it's the most important thing in terms of making money. I will always flip it around and saying we have way too many sloppy, crappy chiropractors in this world, and so I'm not excusing bad technique or bad skill. I'm just saying that there are chiropractors who have bad technique and bad skill who are still making good living. And there are also chiropractors who have incredible skill that are very good at what they do, who are struggling month to month. So I just don't think that your skill as a chiropractor is really the thing that is going to make the difference between you making a good living and you not making a good living. So that's my feeling on it. I'm willing to listen to arguments to the contrary, but you're wrong. So, not going to change my mind. So what did I find? So this Forbes article, and if you want to look at this, do a more deep dive, you're welcome to do that. Just Google how much do chiropractors make. You'll find it. It's like the second link. It breaks down all the different ones from state to state. The highest state is Rhode Island, and the average wage for a chiropractor. Now, this is based on 2017. This is obviously 4 years old. Who knows what it is now? Could be higher, could be lower because of all the COVID crap. Who knows? But Rhode Island comes in at an average of $147,900. That's actually pretty awesome. I think that would be great if that was across the board for chiropractors. I think that would be a really good number. The second state is Tennessee at $122,620. This starts to drop off really quick. Actually, there's only 4 states that average over $100,000. I think that's a shame. I really genuinely think that's a shame. I think that every chiropractor should be making over $100,000. I don't think that's too much to ask. I think that the fact that only 4 states average above that is kind of a mark on chiropractic. That stinks. So that the 4 states are Rhode Island, Tennessee, Connecticut, and Alaska. Those are the 4 states that are above 100,000. The bottom of the barrel is Wyoming, $45,010. And we're going to count that $10 because when you're only making $45,000 a year, you want that 10 extra dollars. So $45,010 is at the bottom. Utah's second, $51,030. You want the 32 also. And Arkansas is $57,010. I'll take that $10. So those are bringing up the bottom of the barrel. So I found another chart about dentists. So if you Google this, I don't want to be sporadic. I'm so sporadic sometimes. If you Google this, the number you're going to see is around $91,000. Now we've already seen, if we're talking about averages within individual states and you break that up, you're going to see a high number in Rhode Island. You're going to see a low number in Wyoming. The interesting thing is that if you were actually to go into each of those states, you would probably also see extremes. This seems to be a pattern within chiropractic. And I think that this kind of brings home my point of it's not as straightforward as some of these other professions are. If you were to go to Rhode Island, what you're probably going to see in Rhode Island is you're going to see that there are a lot of chiropractors who are doing well over the $147,900 mark. And there's going to be a bunch of chiropractors that are well under the $147,900 mark. The crappy thing is if we go down here to Wyoming and Utah, where it says $45,000 average, you're going to see the same thing, which means there are chiropractors in Wyoming that are making $15,000, $20,000 a year, $25,000, $30,000 a year. And there's chiropractors in Wyoming that are making $120,000 or $130,000 a year, maybe even more. So you're going to see these extremes if you were to actually go into each individual county or each individual city within the states. I'm 100% sure of that, because that's one of the crazy things about chiropractic is there are these extremes. And that's one of the points that I made in the video that I did originally is I kind of did a comparison to getting paid to play baseball. The whole idea of like, I get paid to play baseball. There are guys that are riding in buses around the country doing like AA, AAA, like whatever baseball. They're technically getting paid to play baseball. Now, I don't know what someone makes that's riding on a bus doing AAA playing baseball. I imagine it's probably what, $20,000, $30,000 a year, maybe more. I don't really know. I could Google that, I guess. And then there's people that are like, they're doing a World Series right now. And some of those guys are making what, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year, $20 million a year. None of those guys are making $20,000 a year. I don't think the equipment manager is making $20,000 a year. So like, you're just talking about a completely different level, but they all fall into the same category. That category is people who are getting paid to play baseball. Chiropractors are the same way. You see so many extremes within chiropractic where there are people that are doing it part-time. There are people that also have it another job. There are people getting started who just have, I was making no money when I first got started. So, if you throw me in the Illinois average, I don't know what I made my first year, but it was not good. And so I wasn't anywhere close to, let me see what Illinois is averaging. Where am I at? Illinois sucks, by the way, just across the board. Anyone who says otherwise is, wrong. Let's just say that. I've lived in Illinois my whole life. I need to move. $86,820. I might have contributed the $820, but my first year in practice was terrible. I guarantee you I brought that number way down. And I also guarantee you that there's a whole bunch of other people that I have known that have started practice in Illinois that they also have brought that number way down. So the fact of the matter is that the thing that you have to understand is the extremes in chiropractic with how much you're actually going to make are huge. Now, that's a double-sided coin. The one side of the coin is that you could be making pennies. You could be making the $850 or whatever it is, like the $2,000 a year or something stupid. The other side of it is it does give you the opportunity to make way more than what the average is. Like there are chiropractors that are making, I know an associate that makes $200,000 a year, which blows my mind because I have rarely met an associate that's even come close to $100,000 a year, let alone, making two. Now, he's running a whole clinic. He's doing it at a very high level. Like it's a completely odd, like unicorn situation. But the reality is it does exist. And if he's making two, the guy who's paying him is making more than that. I 100% guarantee that. And he's running his own clinic and he's making money from the clinic that this other guy's at. He's making more than two. So he's blowing the top off of any of these averages. And those are things that you will see. Like that happened even in Illinois where I was at. Like there were offices that were making way more money than the $86,000 average. So bad news is you could go broke easily. A lot of chiropractors are going broke. Good news is you could make a ton of money, way more than you could doing something else. That's good news. So let's kind of look at some averages here. So the average number, I kind of went through that first because you should know that the average is just in the chiropractic, the average, take it with a grain of salt. It is just a number we're going to use. It's probably not very accurate. Average is $91,000. The schooling average is about $120,000. Now, this is not taking into consideration room and board. It's not taking into consideration extra expenses that you're going to accrue at school. It's just basically a tuition cost. You're looking at about $120,000. I know a lot of chiropractors get out of chiropractic college with $250,000 worth of debt. I imagine that this would be the same for other schools as well, because I try to just find tuition cost numbers. So if you're averaging $91,000 per year and you spend $120,000 on your schooling, is that reasonable? We'll get into that. So let's do a comparison. So I found another chart. I found a chart for dentists. The number I found for dentists is $176,000 per year average across all states. If we break that down into individual states, the high state I saw was, I think it was Rhode Island, which is the same as, I wonder if it costs a lot to live in Rhode Island. I've never been there. Apparently you guys are making a lot of money there. $258,920. They don't need that $20. They're doing all right in Rhode Island. And then the low number I saw for dentists was $126,950 in West Virginia. That's a crazy thing. The crazy thing is the lowest number that I saw as far as average income for a dentist is higher than all the chiropractors except for Rhode Island. So 49 of the 50 states are below the lowest dentist number. To sum it all up, dentists make a lot more money than we do. Good for you guys. So what do they spend in schooling? So I saw a couple numbers. The dentist was the only one that I saw that that wasn't an exact number, like an average number. They said it's about $200,000 for residents and $265,000 for non-residents. This has to do with whether you live in the state or not. Like, do you live in the state where the school's at? That's true for undergrad too. And none of these include undergrad, by the way. So this is just for the post-grad stuff. So you have to take that into consideration if you're becoming a chiropractor or a dentist or whatever. A lot of these are similar. Like there's actually a lot of overlap as far as the prereqs for some of this stuff, the pre-med stuff. At least there was back in the day. I went to school with a bunch of dentists or dentist want-to-bes when I was in SIU, Edwardsville, Southern Illinois University. So anyway, so $176,000 per year average, $200,000 to $265,000 for their expenses for the school. Let's look at this here. PTs. So PTs, average income per year, $89,000. So very close to chiropractors. Chiropractors were 91. PTs were 89. Their schooling, $75,000. Now this is not a doctor of physical therapy. This is just a PT. So the doctor of physical therapy, the income's a little bit higher and also the schooling is a little bit longer. So both of those numbers change a little bit. I just went with physical therapist. Nurse practitioner, which is what my wife is. She does psych nurse practitioners. So she deals with crazy people all day. And then she gets off work and deals with me. So, pray for her. It's $112,000 average and $150,000 average for schooling. Also, not including undergrad. So those are your numbers. So my first curiosity was this, is if we extrapolated that out over 15 years of working, so the $112,000 for nurse practitioners, the $89,000 for PTs, whatever, let's extrapolate that out for 10 years. And let's figure out what percentage of your schooling cost, like the total cost, what is percentage of it is your actual income for that 15 years. I will explain because this is like nerdy and whatnot. If you make $91,000 on average for 15 years, you will come out to making $1,365,000 over that 15-year period of time. Sounds pretty good, right? It sounds great when you spread it out over 15 years. So a little over $1.3 million. If you take $180,000 and you divide it by the $1.3 million, that comes out to 8.7% of that. So your schooling, if you were to pay that off over the first 15 years, would make up for 8.7% of your income, your gross income. Dentists, if we do the exact same thing, the number is 8.7, exact same number as chiropractors. If you do physical therapists, the number is much lower, 5.6. And if you do nurse practitioner, the number is slightly higher, 8.9. That was interesting to me. It was interesting to me because I was thinking I always thought like the amount of money that you spend on chiropractic college relative to how much you made, that was always the thing I thought was a ripoff. If you just look at it from a pure number standpoint, and this is actually how they will figure out if the gas company's ripping you off. A lot of times they'll be like, oh, well, it's gouging. People need gas. They have to have gas. Are they gouging? They'll look at it from a percentage standpoint. They don't look at it from the standpoint of how much money does the CEO from the gas company make. They look at it as for percentage profits. Are the gas companies charging, are they making, let's say they're making 15% profit, when all the other similar corporations are making 3% profit. So as long as they're staying within the percentage profit of everybody else, it's basically not considered gouging. So this is why looking at it from a percentage standpoint gives us some information. Purely based on percentages, the physical therapy is the best deal. You're coming out at a little over half of the cost of what it is for the rest of the school. So DC, dentists, and nurse practitioners are all similar. But if you actually look at it from a net profit standpoint, this is where it starts to separate a little bit. Because if you take that $1.365 million that chiropractors make over 15 years, and you just subtract the $120,000, you end up with $1,245,000. If you do the same for dentists, you net $2,408,000. So now it's like you see a huge gap. So for that extra $100,000 that you paid for your schooling, you basically double your income over a 15-year period of time. That comes out to $160,000 a year. The chiropractors would be $83,000 a year if you take out the cost of paying for your schooling. I realize that most people are not paying for their schooling over 10 years, but if you were to do that's how much it would change your income. Physical therapists would make, if you take the total, the $335,000 that they would make over 15 years, and you minus the school cost of $75,000, they come out to $1,260,000. The physical therapist actually makes more money over a 15-year period of time than the chiropractor does, even though the chiropractor has a slightly higher income, but that's because the physical therapist schooling is lower, about $50,000 lower. Last number is nurse practitioner. Nurse practitioner over a 15-year period of time is $1,680,000. Subtract the cost of schooling, you end up with $1,530,000. That's when you start looking at the net numbers. That's when you start to see a huge gap. You start to see a bigger gap of like actual money in my pocket. Is it going to percentage wise? Okay, it's similar, but the fact that the top end you can make more money, that over 10 years, 15 years, 20-year period of time is a pretty substantial amount of money. So what is the biggest difference? And this is the thing that anytime I bring up that chiropractic college doesn't prepare you to run a business, 99% of the time someone chimes in. And I want to do a podcast one of these days about the peanut gallery, because I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Unless you know who you're getting advice from online, don't take advice from people online. That's my advice to you. And that would be me also. Like if you're listening to me and you know nothing about me, you know zero about me, take this with a grain of salt. Like even if you're one of those kids that I'm telling you about that is like, hey, you're kind of researching chiropractic. If you know nothing about me, take this podcast and this advice with a grain of salt. I mean, use it as part of your decision-making process, but don't act like it's scripture. You know what I mean? Like it's not holy words from God. Like it just isn't. Like it's just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Opinions are like butts, right? Everybody's got them. Most of them stink, like that whole thing. And so when you're online and you're asking for advice and you're chiming in, I would say almost across the board, and I am getting sidetracked here, but I'm going to kind of get on this, is that most of the time, the people who are most willing to chime in and give you advice are the people least qualified to give advice. They should not be giving advice. There are exceptions to that, but as a general rule, if you do not know the qualifications or the character of the person giving you advice, take that advice with a grain of salt. With that said, when I will say on there, hey, chiropractic college doesn't prepare us for, doesn't prepare you to run a business, 99% of the time, somebody chimes in and says, it's not their job. Dentists don't have to go to the dental school doesn't prepare you for business. Medical school doesn't prepare you for business. Blah, 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 blah. Here's why that's a stupid argument. And if you've ever commented on my stuff and you've said that, your argument is stupid. Is this? It's different. And this is the big difference between being a chiropractor and all these other things. Even though the numbers are similar and we kind of look at the net and we kind of go, hey, as a general rule, all these people are doing okay. I mean, they're if we're just looking at averages and you could go to school, you could hit the average and you could go throughout your career and do that, you're going to be fine. And unless you have a spending problem, you're going to be fine. Any of these careers will put food on your table. But the biggest difference is this, is that how do you get to this point as a chiropractor? Because as a dentist, as a physical therapist, and as a nurse practitioner, you have an opportunity that most chiropractors don't have. You can get a job. When you look at these careers, the dentist, physical therapist, and the nurse practitioner, what you actually don't see in these numbers is you don't see job security. You don't see that the job has been created. You don't see that these people, most of them are not running their own business. You can see that a lot of them have benefits that are not even included in the numbers that we're talking about, whether that's health insurance or whether that's, my wife, she has her insurance is paid for. Like she has health insurance through her work. Her malpractice insurance is paid for her work. Her continuing ed is paid for. Her stuff was hysterical because she used to be a nurse, ER nurse. She was an ER nurse and she was going to school to be a nurse practitioner. And when she made the transition out of the ER into becoming a nurse practitioner, like we were looking at different jobs, like she would get job offers and different things and she would show them to me and be like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I started laughing because I'm like, I would have given up my left kidney and my firstborn to get one of these job offers when I got out of chiropractic college. Like I started with nothing, like with zero. Like nobody, like I didn't have paid time off. Like I didn't have insurance. Like I didn't have like malpractice insurance. I didn't have health insurance. Like I didn't have like, what in the world is this? Like it was such a weird world compared to the one that I was familiar with. And I think that that's the thing that you have to take into consideration when you're comparing these. And when we talk about whether it's the school's responsibility to teach you how to run a business. And I don't know, maybe it's not their responsibility, but I will tell you this, if you don't know how to run a business, you're going to fail. If you don't know how to run a business as a chiropractor, you're going to be making on the bottom end of this because your boss might be making $200,000 a year, but you're going to be making 30 or 25. I guarantee you that if you don't know how to run a business, most likely, not always, because there are those exceptions of exceptional associates and exceptional positions, but other than those few unicorn positions, If you don't know how to run a business and you're working for somebody else as a chiropractor, you're going to make less money than the guy who's managing the gas station down the road from your house is. That's the bottom line. And so when you do the comparison of these, and like I said, maybe it's not the school's responsibility, but considering that it's necessary for your survival, I kind of lean toward they should probably be doing something to help, something more than what they're doing, because there's so many of you that are out in this situation now. Or maybe you're getting ready to go into this situation, and maybe you were concerned about passing boards, which you should be, and you were concerned about passing your tests, and you should be, and you were concerned about getting open and concerned about picking the right table and whether you should get an x-ray machine or not, and which insurances you should be a part of. And I get all that. Like, I understand that those things seem incredibly important at the time, and they are incredibly important. But when the real world hits and you're sitting there trying to put food on your table, trying to figure out how you can get this like weight off of your chest and off of your shoulders of stress. The secret to that is not in all of these things that consumed you for the 4 or 5 or 6 years prior to this point in time. That stress is coming from the fact that you're in over your head, and you're not in over your head clinically. I mean, I understand you might be able to, you need to get better. Everyone needs to get better. We should be improving all the time. But that weight on your chest is because you are in over your head in a situation that dentists, physical therapists, and nurse practitioners do not have to experience unless they choose to. Like, you could be a dentist and own your own practice. Great. High five. But you could also go get a job. You could be a physical therapist and you could own your own job. I know some. High five. Awesome. It's funny. They don't actually know any more about business than we do, but they don't have to do it. Like, they chose to do it. At least the guy I know chose to do it. And I would imagine anyone who's in that situation, you chose to do it. And people would go, tell chiropractors, well, you chose to own your own practice. Did I? I like owning my own practice. I like owning a business. Like, I think it's great. I'm a weirdo. Most of you guys don't like it. Did you choose it? You kind of chose it because you had to, because you spent $120,000 or $200,000 on your schooling. And if you stayed in that job that you got when you got out of school, you're making $30,000, $40,000 plus incentives that are hard to reach. So you might be making $50,000 a year. It's not enough. And when you look at it in that light, it's a ripoff. So my encouragement to you is this: you can't do anything about the fact that you went to chiropractic college and you built up tons of debt and now you're up to your eyeballs in debt. You can do something about paying that off sooner, and you can do something about taking that weight off of your chest and de-stressing a little bit and being someone that starts to change these number averages for the better. There's no reason, I'm telling you, please listen to me when I say this. There is absolutely no reason that you can't make a good living as a chiropractor. There's no reason. If you start to take the responsibility of being a business owner and a leader, if you take those responsibilities seriously, you can make a good living as a chiropractor. I don't care what the insurance companies do. I don't care what the guy on the street's doing. I don't care what the stupid COVID regulations and all of those. I don't care about any of that stuff. You can make a very good living as a chiropractor if you take the leadership and small business ownership responsibilities very seriously. They did not teach you that in school. They did not teach you that before you went to school, unless you have a weird background, which awesome if you do. Like, if you have business background or some sort of leadership background, oh man, you are so ahead. That's awesome. There are so many opportunities that are available to you now, whether that's something like I have my Next Step program, which is a great place to start if you're on a budget or you're just getting out of school or you're not sure where to start. Like, it's such a great place to start because it doesn't cost a lot. There are coaches, mentors, practice management, and even some of these things that I don't like. There are a lot of practice management that I don't like. I did practice management with multiple groups, and most of them I would not, actually none of them I would endorse. I wouldn't endorse any of them. Not a single one of them that I did would I tell you to go do. It's all bad choices. With that said, I learned things from each of them. I learned some things to do and I learned some things not to do, and I became a better business owner. I became more competent. Turns out I learned a lot more on my own, and I learned a lot more through the internet and through videos and trainings and podcasts and books and all this other stuff that I trial and error. I learned a lot through that, but I was willing to go through that process because I actually liked that part of things. You may not like the process, but I'm telling you, like, the longer that you push off that responsibility of becoming better at business and marketing, and listen, you don't have to do everything. You don't have to do everything, but you do have to know how your business runs. You do have to have a general idea of how things work. And you do have to have enough competence in what you're doing that you can identify and hire the right people and treat them right and put a structure together that makes sense and works. I talk to so many people that tell me what their plan is, and their plan doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's like, have you thought about this? You're trying to make 1 + 1 = 4. And I know we live in a world where everything is relative. It's not that way in business. It's math. It's numbers. It's grit. It's responsibility. It's structure. It's none of the reasons you went to chiropractic college. I know you didn't go to chiropractic college to do those things, but I'm telling you, if you want to make a good living, if you want to get out of the situation that you are in, it is going to start with you becoming a different person. You have got to grow. You got to grow by reading a book, by listening to a podcast, by trying some things and failing, by falling down and getting back up. Like we used to understand this when we were kids. Like when we were kids, or at least when I was a kid, like when I learned how to ride a bike, there was no part of me that thought like, I'm not going to figure this out. It's like, I want to get on it. I want to ride. And when I fell off of it, I got back on it again. You know, it's like when you're learning how to walk, like one of the things that I loved watching with my kids when they were really little is I loved watching them like get right back up. And I remember thinking, even when I was watching, my kids are all like, they're all way past the age of falling down because they don't know how to walk. But it's like, you're watching this little kid try to walk, and they would like grab a hold of something and pull themselves up, and they take a step or two and then they fall down. If they were lucky, they just fell down. If they were unlucky, they would like bang their head against something or take a bad spill or whatever. But they get back up and they do it again. There wasn't a point where my kids just sat down and were like, I'm not going to walk anymore. This is too hard. Nobody told me I was going to have to walk when I was born, or I never would have been born. You can't do that. You can't treat problems that way. And I've met so many chiropractors that are 5, 7, 8, 10 years into practice, and they've never taken that responsibility of business ownership. They keep telling themselves, if I just get a little bit better at adjusting, then my practice will be full. Next month's going to be better. I just created a meme about that the other day where it was like the Squid Game, like the guy's holding the other guy, and it says, you know, struggling chiropractors. And then it was what was holding them up was next month's going to be better. And somebody commented like, is it really? No, not by accident. But you keep telling yourself that, your practice is going to be your handcuffs. And they're not even going to be nice handcuffs. They're going to be crappy, rusty, junky handcuffs that hurt. And your practice sometimes, for a lot of chiropractors, rewards you just enough that you don't quit. And I think that's terrible. Honestly, I would rather see a chiropractor gloriously fail and go on to do something that they really enjoy and just take the stress off and go get a different job. Go be the manager at the gas station. I don't do something that doesn't make you want to die. Fail or figure it out. Like don't live in this middle spot. And if you're going to figure it out, it's not because you got to figure out how to have a little bit more torque on someone's atlas. It just isn't. I love technique nerds. My chiropractor is a technique nerd. I was a technique nerd. Like I love talking to gondroids and people that are into upper cervical and people that are into like specific techniques, even if they're soft tissue techniques or whatever. Like I love technique nerds. I think they're the best chiropractors. They're not the best paid chiropractors. They're not the most well-off financially chiropractors. The ones that are making a lot of money are generally pretty good at being leadership within their space. They know how their business runs. We could have discussions about whether things are ethical or not ethical. That's not even the point. You could be an ethical chiropractor that's making a really good amount of money, that's helping a lot of people, but you are not going to be that way with how you came out of school. You came out of school completely ill-equipped to run a small business. And if you stay that way, you're going to starve. Actually, if you're lucky, you're going to starve. Then you'll go off and do something else. If you're unlucky, you'll do just well enough that you'll stay a prisoner to your practice for 20 years and then you'll quit. You'll have no retirement. You'll have no money. Still have eyeballs up to your eyeballs in debt, and it's going to freaking suck. And you're going to wonder, like, how did I get to this point? And it's because you didn't take responsibility. You didn't focus on the things that actually matter. So how much money do chiropractors make? I think you can make as much money as you want. I think there's wisdom in knowing what's enough. You can't have everything. I mean, you can't have an amazing practice that's seeing tons of people and you're making $500,000-$600,000 a year and also have time for your family. Like, it doesn't really work that way. I mean, obviously there are exceptions to the rule, but you can't have everything. You have to know kind of when's enough. I think it's good to kind of have that conversation in your mind. But you can make more money than you are, especially if you're struggling. And if you're making under $100,000 a year, you need to step it up. You really do. Like you could do better than that. Beyond that point, I don't know, do whatever you want, but it's on you. It's not, and maybe if, I don't know, maybe the school should have done better, but there's nothing you could do about that. You can't go back in time. If you can go back in time, let me know. I got a few things I'd like to fix. I'd like to change. Maybe just go back and punch young Jerry in the face because he needed to punch in the face because he was an idiot. So if you want to make more money, start taking the business and marketing side of your practice more seriously. If you want to make more money, start taking leadership more seriously. If you want to make more money, grow as a person, grow as a human being, grow as a business owner, and you will make more money because chiropractic will give you the opportunity to make more money because there's no shortage of people that need your help. There's no shortage of people that you can help. It's really just a matter of whether you can be the type of person with the capacity to help them and make that kind of money. And you grow into that. You're not hatched into that position. You don't come out of school in that position. You grow into it, and it's intentional. And if you're going to be intentional, you're going to be all right. All right, guys, that's it. Another episode of the Rocket Chiro Podcast. Thank you for listening. If you want help with your business and marketing, go to Rocket Chiro. You can join Next Step and start learning with the trainings that are available. If you want help with your website or your SEO or getting more reviews, take my practice assessment. I would love to take a look at your website and all of your SEO, local marketing stuff and give you some recommendations. No obligation, no pressure. I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm going to wrap this up. I will talk to you on the next episode. See you guys.